A farmer risks everything to save a stranger's dog from a burning truck. But what happens 3 days later leaves the entire town speechless. A convoy of fire trucks shows up at his farm, and they're not there for a fire. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. The morning sun painted the sky over Stillwater County in soft swaths of gold and pink, promising a day of calm that Sam Walker, a 60-year-old farmer with lines of hard-earned wisdom etched into his face, had come to cherish. Standing at the edge of his sprawling barley field, he closed his eyes briefly, relishing the gentle breeze rolling across the Montana plains. For nearly 4 decades, Sam had worked these acres. In that time, he had experienced floods, droughts, brutal winters, and everything else life in rural America could hurl his way. Yet through it all, he had never quite seen anything like what was about to unfold. He heard the engines roar before he spotted the flicker of flames. Down the dusty county road, a battered pickup truck barreled forward, thick smoke pouring from under its hood. Sam squinted, shading his eyes with a calloused hand as he tried to make sense of the scene. Just then, a frantic barking split the silence, insistent, piercing, and desperate. He felt a stab of concern slice through his gut. This wasn't just a fire. There was life at stake. The truck lurched violently. In the passenger seat, or where a passenger seat should be, a dog pawed at the cracked window, muzzle flecked with foam as it howled for help. Flames danced along the edges of the hood, and a choking cloud of smoke poured through the vents. Sam reacted without a second thought. He took off at a sprint, hobbling slightly on a knee that had never been the same since a heavy hay bale accident years ago. But adrenaline made him move faster than he had in ages. He didn't even glance at his own beat-up Chevy parked nearby. There was no time to fumble for keys and chase the truck in a vehicle. The burning pickup was fast approaching a turn in the road that led towards Sam's property. If the driver couldn't brake, if the truck's engine or tires gave out, it was going to smash through the fence. Worse, it might burst into flames before Sam could reach it. At the last bend, the driver wrenched the wheel desperately. The pickup veered off the county road and tore across the shallow ditch that separated farmland from pavement. A moment later, the truck ground to a halt in a plume of dust and smoke, engine sputtering a final violent cough. Sam clambered over the fence in a hurry, ignoring the splinter that dug into his palm. He raced toward the wreck, eyes watering from the acrid stink of scorched metal. Through the windshield, he could see the driver, a middle-aged man, unconscious or nearly so, slumped over the steering wheel. Flames licked the edges of the hood now, crackling and snapping with hungry intent. The dog was still inside, barking and pawing at the door. Sam could make out the sheen of raw fear in the poor animal's eyes. He yanked on the driver's side door. It stuck. Smoke burned in his lungs, each breath a scorching reminder that time was running out. With a grunt, Sam threw every bit of his weight into one fierce tug. The door gave. He lost his balance and stumbled backward, nearly toppled by his own momentum. Coughing, he regained his footing, reached inside the cab and dragged the driver out, hooking his arms beneath the man's shoulders. The dog jumped frantically, muzzle pressed against the window, as if begging Sam to come back. Sam laid the driver in the grass a few yards away, chest heaving from the effort. It took only a second to confirm the man was still alive, though disoriented. His eyelids fluttered, and a faint groan escaped his lips. Sam pressed 2 fingers gently to the man's pulse. It was thready and fast, but it was there. Then came the explosion of sparks as the fire in the engine block gained new life. Sam whirled around in alarm. The dog was still trapped. He hurried back to the truck. The passenger door was searing hot when he tried the handle, but at least it wasn't jammed. Wincing at the pain that lanced his hand, Sam pried the door open. A streak of black and tan fur leaped past him, a medium-sized mutt, trembling, eyes wild with fear. For an instant, the dog almost turned back. as though it refused to leave the unconscious owner behind. Sam scooped the dog up in his arms, ignoring the singe of metal against his forearm, and stumbled away from the vehicle as the flames crackled louder. He collapsed onto the grass beside the man, dog in his lap. He could feel his heart hammering as if it might burst through his ribs, adrenaline roaring through his veins. The dog barked in short, panicked bursts, then nuzzled at its owner's cheek. Sam pulled out his phone with shaking fingers and dialed 911. A single ring. 2 rings. "Operator, what's your emergency?" came the tinny voice. "This is Sam Walker on County Road 18. A pickup caught fire. Driver unconscious, dog safe. But the truck's about to go up in flames. Need fire and an ambulance quick as you can, ma'am." He managed to rattle off his approximate location, the operator's voice calm yet urgent. The call ended. Sam let out a shaky exhale, turning his attention to the man lying there. Beneath a smear of soot and blood, the man's face looked no older than Sam's own children would have been if... Sam forced the thought aside, focusing on the present crisis. The dog whimpered and licked the man's face again. "You'll be all right," Sam murmured, reaching out to pat the trembling dog on the head. "Your owner's in rough shape, but help's on the way." The fire spread under the hood, a searing wave of heat that warped the metal. In the distance, Sam's phone alarm chimed, a daily reminder to check the irrigation lines. And it all felt so strangely normal, like the farmland continued spinning in its own routine while just yards away, a drama of life and death was unfolding. He didn't know the driver's name or why he'd been tearing down that back road in a failing truck. But in the quiet minutes before the first responders arrived, Sam only cared about keeping the man stable. The dog refused to leave its owner's side, pressing its flank gently against him, as if offering warmth or comfort. Sam nodded approval at the loyal creature, recognizing in it a spirit as steadfast as the farmland that surrounded them. Sirens pierced the still air, echoing across the barley fields. Within minutes, a volunteer fire engine from the nearest small town rattled onto Sam's property, lights flashing. An ambulance close behind skidded over the gravel, medics leaping out before the vehicle even came to a full stop. Sam stood back, letting them do their work, watchful eyes picking up every detail. He'd seen enough accidents in his lifetime to know when to give professionals room. A medic in a navy blue uniform approached him. "You okay, sir? That's a nasty burn on your arm." Only then did Sam notice the blistering skin on his forearm. He'd been so focused on rescuing the driver and dog that he hadn't realized the extent of the heat's damage. It stung like a wasp sting multiplied by 10, but the pain felt distant, overshadowed by the rush of adrenaline. "I'll live," Sam replied. "Tend to that fella first. He was unconscious, maybe a concussion or could have been the smoke. I don't know." The medic nodded and rushed to assist. A pair of firefighters doused the flames still licking at the pickup's front end. By now, black smoke billowed heavily into the sky, but the threat of explosion was lessening with every blast of water. Meanwhile, the dog yelped anxiously as paramedics worked over its owner. Sam knelt beside the animal, rubbing its ears. "He'll be okay," he whispered, hoping his words rang true. Within half an hour, the scene cleared enough for Sam to give a statement. He recounted the bare facts. The truck barreling down the road, the fire, the rescue. A young sheriff's deputy scribbled in a worn notebook. "Your name's Sam Walker?" the deputy asked. "And you live on this property?" "That's right," Sam answered, shoulders aching with the tension of it all. The deputy looked impressed. "Sounds like you saved his life. Not many folks jump into a burning truck for a stranger." Sam shrugged. "Did what had to be done." Medics loaded the unconscious driver into the ambulance. One of them paused to speak to Sam. "He's stable for now. We'll do a full check at the hospital. Any idea who he is? No wallet found on him." Sam shook his head. "Never saw him before today." Then a subtle movement caught his attention. The dog, trembling, hovered by the ambulance door as if it intended to leap in after its owner. The medic observed it too. Animal control's on the way, but given the circumstances, they might just hold the dog at the shelter until we locate next of kin or something. Unless... His gaze flicked to Sam. You could keep it, if you're willing, at least until we figure out who the driver is. Sam glanced down at the dog's wide, scared eyes and realized instantly he couldn't let the creature be carted off to a kennel. The dog was dirty, smelled of smoke, and looked downright miserable, but there was a silent appeal in its expression that struck Sam to the core. All right, Sam agreed quietly, raising his arm so the dog could sniff the back of his hand. I'll take it in for a spell, but let me know as soon as you find out more about the fella. As the ambulance roared away, Sam found himself alone with the dog, now tethered to a makeshift leash provided by the paramedics. The local fire chief approached, an older man Sam recognized from casual greetings around town. He's lucky you were here, the chief said, fiddling nervously with the brim of his hat. This could have been a tragedy. Sam nodded, exhaustion settling into his bones. Sure hope he pulls through. No clue where he was headed or why he was pushing that old truck so hard. The chief threw a glance at the still smoking vehicle, half buried in the ditch. We'll get it towed. Looks like a total loss. Then he set a hand on Sam's shoulder. We'll swing by tomorrow to check in on you. Get that arm looked at properly, Sam. You did a mighty brave thing. The dog nuzzled Sam's side as if seconding the chief's words. Through the haze of smoke and the swirl of official vehicles, Sam watched the last fire engine pull away, headlights vanishing into the farmland's endless expanse. The farmland itself was silent again, as though nothing out of the ordinary had happened. In the quiet that followed, Sam wondered what future might unravel from a single act of kindness. He had no way of guessing that, just 3 days later, an entire convoy of fire trucks would appear unannounced at his farm, sending his life in a direction he never imagined. But for now, all he knew was that he had saved a dog, and maybe its owner too, and that the old farmland's morning calm had been shattered in a way that he would never forget. 3 days after Sam Walker's unexpected rescue of the stranger and his dog, the rhythms of the farm had almost returned to normal, at least on the surface. The old barley fields still rolled out in golden arcs beneath the open Montana sky, and the daily chores of feeding livestock and minding irrigation went on as they always had. Yet a faint undercurrent of anticipation ran through Sam's mind, keeping his thoughts far from routine. He'd patched the fence that the runaway truck had mangled, cleaned up scraps of charred metal from the ditch, and even regraded the rutted soil. But with every passing hour, he found himself wondering how the wounded man was faring and what might happen next. The dog, meanwhile, seemed determined to settle in. It had spent the past 3 nights curled on an old quilt in Sam's mudroom, a place that smelled of rubber boots and faint wood smoke. Whenever Sam wandered in from the fields, the dog would trot to greet him, tail wagging so hard its whole body vibrated. Sam tried calling it names like Buddy, Hank, or Chewy, but none earned more than a puzzled tilt of the head. At times it would gaze at him with a haunted sort of loyalty, as though waiting for some absent command. Between farm tasks, Sam made phone calls. First, to the small hospital 1 county over where the unknown man had been taken. A curt voice on the other end confirmed that a middle-aged male patient had arrived with burns and probable smoke inhalation, but was alive and stable under observation. No ID on him yet. No updates beyond that. Then Sam phoned the volunteer fire department, offering fresh produce as a thank you for their quick response. Though appreciative, they couldn't shed additional light on the stranger's identity. Next, Sam tried the sheriff's office, only to learn there were no missing person reports matching the man's description. The whole thing added to the mystique. Could be a drifter, the deputy told him, unhelpful. Or maybe he's local, but not from these parts. Hard to say. By the 3rd day, Sam had resigned himself to wait. Whoever the man was, Sam had done his part and would do so again if needed. He was on his way to fix a broken gate latch when the first rumble of engines reached him. It was mid-morning, the time of day when the sun was high enough to chase away the early chill, but not yet fierce enough to bake the fields. At first, Sam assumed it was one of the ranch trucks from a neighboring property rolling by on the county road. But the sound grew louder, heavier. In the distance, faint wisps of dust rose behind a convoy of vehicles rumbling steadily toward his farm. Sam set his toolbox aside and ambled to the fence line, heart beginning to pound for reasons he couldn't pin down. He spotted the lead vehicle, large, red, bristling with hoses and silver nozzles. A fire truck. Behind it trailed another and another, some bearing the name of the local volunteer department and others from the next county over. He counted at least 4 big engines, plus a scattering of smaller support trucks. The sight was so incongruous that Sam almost wondered if there was a raging wildfire he hadn't heard about. "Hey there!" called a voice over the mechanical growl, amplified by a portable loudspeaker. The trucks drew to a halt on the dusty road just outside Sam's property. One by one, firefighters hopped down, removing helmets and wiping sweat from their brows. In the midst of the bustle stood Captain Reese, the same fire chief who'd responded to the burning pickup. He stepped forward with an air of guarded expectation. Sam lifted a hand in greeting, ignoring the sudden tension in his chest. "Morning, Captain. This quite a show you brought." Captain Reese cleared his throat. "Mr. Walker, sorry to arrive unannounced like this. We've got a reason." Behind him, the other firefighters loitered, some glancing at Sam's fields, others whispering amongst themselves. The dog, alerted by the commotion, padded over from the barn, barking a little. Sam placed a reassuring hand on its flank, then frowned. "What's going on?" The captain let out a long breath. "We found out who that man was, the one you saved." A hush fell over the cluster of firefighters. Even the dog quieted, ears twitching. Sam's pulse quickened. "I'm listening." Captain Reese took off his hat, turning it nervously between his hands. "His name's Derek Mills. He's been in the hospital since that day, recovering. But, well, we discovered something surprising. Derek's actually a retired firefighter from Mapleton, 2 states over. He spent nearly 20 years on the job. He was down on his luck, traveling cross-country, and the truck's engine was about done for when he came through here." Sam absorbed the news. A retired firefighter. That explained the dog's intense loyalty. Maybe it had been trained, or maybe it had traveled with him for years. Then Sam noticed flickers of emotion crossing the firefighters' faces, as if they all shared some solemn vow. "All right," he said gently. "So why the convoy?" Captain Reese coughed, glancing at his watch like he'd rather be anywhere else. "After he woke up, Derek told us what happened. You saved his life, and the dog's too. When that truck went up in flames. Men like Derek, they serve their communities, risk their necks for strangers in burning buildings and wrecked vehicles, and you basically returned the favor." Sam's eyes darted from one fire truck to the next. He saw banners strapped to the sides in big block letters reading, "Thank you, Sam." He spotted sealed boxes stacked in the back of one truck, no telling what they contained. "I just did what anyone would do," Sam mumbled, feeling the heat of embarrassment flush across his face. Captain Reese motioned to the crew behind him. A tall man wearing a Crisp County fire patch stepped forward with a respectful nod. "We put out some calls," the tall man explained. "We told Derek's old department about what you did. Word spread fast. We ended up with donations from multiple firehouses, supplies, funds, all that. We wanted to repay the kindness. Maybe help fix up your place if you need it. Or buy feed for your livestock. We even have a local vet who offered free care for the dog, in case you choose to keep it." Sam stood speechless, his throat suddenly tight. He recalled the hours he'd spent worrying about bills, the irrigation pump that sputtered on the verge of dying, the cost of diesel that nibbled at his savings each month. But to have a whole convoy of firefighters appear, offering help, it felt as unreal as a dream. "I'm not sure what to say," Sam managed, voice unsteady. I mean, I didn't do it expecting some kind of reward. Hell, I don't even know Derek. A quiet breeze stirred the barley. The firefighters exchanged glances of mutual understanding. Captain Reese laid a gentle hand on Sam's shoulder. Exactly why you deserve it, sir. If folks only helped people they knew, this world would be in worse shape. Over the next hour, the firefighters offloaded boxes of donated items, everything from first aid kits and animal feed to brand new hoses and a portable generator. One firefighter used a forklift from the nearest truck to gently place a large crate by Sam's barn. Another carried out a carefully packaged irrigation pump, brand new, gleaming under the sun. Sam could hardly speak at the sight of it, remembering all the times he'd patched his old contraption with duct tape and elbow grease. The dog, tail wagging, greeted every firefighter who approached, as if aware that these were the same sort of people who'd trained and cared for its real owner. A few men recognized the dog from a photograph sent by Derek's old department. They took turns patting its head, all wearing subdued smiles that hinted at deeper feelings. Sam stood near the barn door, shaken by gratitude. "How is Derek, though?" he asked Captain Reese. "I'd like to see him if he's up for visitors." "He's recovering slow, but sure," answered the captain. "Smoke inhalation did a number on his lungs. Some minor burns, too. They think he'll pull through just fine. Says he wants to come by and thank you in person, once he's back on his feet." Relief mingled with compassion in Sam's chest. "I'd appreciate that. The dog's seems like it's been waiting for him." While the rest of the crew organized boxes in Sam's barn, the tall firefighter from Crisp County took Sam aside. "Any trouble around the farm you'd like help with? Fences, maybe? We're yours for the day." At first, Sam felt a surge of prideful hesitation. Ranch folks didn't usually ask for assistance. Self-reliance was the norm. But seeing these men and women who'd come so far, fueled by pure generosity, he realized this was more than just a gesture. It was a chance to connect in a way small towns seldom got to see. So he took a breath and said, "That fence over by the orchard's sagging something fierce, and the barn's roof could use a patch. If you're truly offering, I won't say no." In minutes, multiple teams sprang into motion like a well-practiced drill. A pair of men climbed onto the barn roof, carrying bundles of shingles. Others gathered posts and wire, heading to the orchard with Sam guiding them. Some set up a makeshift station to distribute sandwiches and coffee for the volunteers. The dog accompanied each group in turn, trotting between them as though playing foreman. Between hammer strikes and the hum of conversation, Sam found himself telling them about his father's old farm, how he'd inherited it after a series of heartbreaks, and about the struggles of running it alone. The firefighters listened respectfully, each of them used to hearing the tough realities behind stoic exteriors. They shared their own stories, too, of overnight shifts battling house fires, of flood rescues, of the sense of family that held them together. Hours slipped away in the mild spring air. The orchard fence began to straighten, the barn roof got new shingles, and Sam's battered old irrigation pump was replaced with a shining new contraption that every volunteer insisted on testing. Laughter mingled with hammering, a lightness growing in Sam's chest despite the strangeness of it all. By mid-afternoon, the tasks were winding down. Sam stood in the barn's doorway, watching the last nails driven into place. The dog was curled at his feet, panting contentedly. Captain Reese sauntered over, arms crossed, an easy smile on his face. "Looks like we got a lot done, Sam. How are you holding up?" Sam swallowed hard, glancing toward the barley fields glimmering in the sun. "Still not sure if this is real. You folks sure know how to come in strong." Reese chuckled. "Well, we do try. It's not often we get to help someone who isn't, in immediate danger. Kind of nice to do good under calmer conditions." Then his voice softened. "Derek said you saved him and his dog with no hesitation. That means something in our line of work. We take care of our own." Sam knelt to scratch the dog's ears, blinking away sudden tears. "I just couldn't bear to see him burn," he murmured. "Or this fella either." One of the Crisp County firefighters approached with an envelope in hand. "Hey, Sam," he said, awkwardly extending it. "We took up a collection. It ain't a fortune, but maybe it'll help with feed, or anything else the farm needs." For a moment, Sam couldn't speak. He ran a calloused thumb over the envelope's seal, feeling the thickness of bills inside. All these strangers, across different counties, even different states, had chipped in to help a man they'd never met. The honesty of it overwhelmed him. "Thank you," Sam managed, voice breaking. "You don't know what this means." He scanned the yard. A wave of quiet pride rippled through the volunteers, many of them nodding or giving him thumbs up. Some had families waiting back home. Others had driven hours from neighboring towns, and all for the sake of a single rescue that felt like second nature to Sam. In that instant, he realized that an act of simple decency could spark goodness in ways he'd never imagined. Tomorrow these firefighters would disperse, returning to their stations and normal routines. But Sam would never forget the day they arrived, engines shining, to offer the same unwavering support that Derek must have once offered countless strangers during his own service. Captain Reese gestured for everyone to gather by the orchard fence for a group photograph. Sam, still blushing a bit, joined them, the dog at his heels. A volunteer snapped the picture. Sam in his dusty overalls, ringed by men and women in soot-stained firefighting gear, each one beaming with the simple joy of having done something worthwhile. As the sun edged toward the horizon, the convoy prepared to depart. Engines rumbled, men and women climbed aboard, and goodbyes were exchanged. Sam found himself enveloped in a chorus of well wishes. "Stay safe, Sam. Take care of that pup. We'll be back to check on you soon." When the last truck rolled away, Sam was left in the hush of early evening. The farmland stretched out before him, newly mended, and the dog sat at his side, ears perked. Sam clutched the donation envelope, his thoughts already drifting to how he might repay such generosity. Up above, the sky glowed in the dusky pink of twilight. Tomorrow he would wake again to feed the animals and tend the barley. He would care for the dog until Derek was well enough to reclaim it. And if Derek couldn't, well, Sam would figure that out too. In all his years on the farm, Sam had never seen a day quite like this, a day that proved even the loneliest acres could spark a sense of community that reached far beyond county lines. And as night fell across Stillwater County, Sam Walker and his four-legged companion settled into a soft sense of peace. He'd faced fire and helped a stranger, and that act had somehow turned the entire world more hopeful, one compassionate gesture at a time. 2 days after the firefighters' convoy departed, Sam Walker's mornings settled back into a familiar rhythm, but with small, bright differences. Where he used to rise alone before dawn, now he had a four-legged companion waiting at the door. The dog had quickly adapted to waking when Sam's alarm went off. They'd share a quiet moment in the pre-dawn darkness before setting out to feed the chickens, check on the barn cat, and walk the perimeter of the barley fields. Sam still didn't know what to call the dog, though he tossed out every name he could conjure. The creature never answered to any of them, only wagged its tail or tilted its head in confusion. Still, the presence of the animal made the farm feel somehow less lonely, as if Sam finally had an ally against the silence. That particular morning, Sam was back in the tractor shed just after 6, giving the new irrigation pump a final inspection. The volunteers had installed it with meticulous care, triple-checking every seal, gasket, and hose. For years, Sam had wrestled with a clunky old contraption that wheezed at the slightest strain. Now, his system purred with reliable efficiency. He even caught himself humming as he flipped switches and watched the pressure gauge climb. Outside, the sky was cloudless, the color of polished steel, and a gentle breeze carried the earthy scent of newly irrigated fields. It was going to be a warm day. He was halfway through the final check when he heard the crunch of gravel under tires. The dog pricked its ears, letting out a low bark. Sam wiped his hands on his jeans and peered out from behind the open shed door. A dull green sheriff's cruiser was rolling down his driveway, sending a swirl of dust into the morning light. He stepped out, shielding his eyes with one hand as the car came to a halt. Deputy Marnie Dawson climbed out, a trim woman in her late 40s who had a reputation for directness. She gave Sam a courteous nod. "Morning, Mr. Walker. Mind if I have a word?" Sam felt a subtle flutter of concern. In a rural county like this, a visit from the sheriff's department usually meant either trouble or official business. "Of course," he replied, motioning for her to follow him around to a patch of shade by the barn. "Everything okay?" She offered a small smile. "Nothing bad. Actually, I'm here with a little news. We heard from the hospital last night. Derek Mills woke up enough to speak some more, and they identified him properly. He's stable, alert, but they need to keep him under observation a while longer." Relief washed through Sam, and he let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. "That's good to hear. Any clue if he's got family or close friends who might care for his dog?" Deputy Dawson folded her arms, glancing at the dog, which trotted forward and sniffed at her boots. "Far as we know, he doesn't have immediate family in this state. The hospital staff found some records that suggest he's estranged from his only sister, who lives back east. There's also a chance he'll be transferred to a rehab center once he's discharged." Sam bent down, patting the dog absently. He felt an odd pang of sadness. Part of him wanted to reunite the dog with its rightful owner as soon as possible. Another part, the side that had begun to bond with the creature, dreaded the emptiness that would settle in its absence. "Well," he said, trying to keep his voice casual, "if it ends up needing a place, I'll hold on to it until Derek's on his feet." Deputy Dawson nodded. "We appreciate that. Another thing. Derek asked if you could come see him. He's apparently quite eager to meet his rescuer, though he's still weak. Once the doctors clear it, I can give you a ride if you'd like to visit." Sam hesitated, a strange mix of curiosity and shyness closing his throat. It wasn't every day he went to see a near stranger in the hospital. But then again, this was no ordinary stranger, and Sam realized he wanted to see Derek, if only to hand back some personal belongings and check on him properly. "I'd be grateful for that," Sam said. "Let me know when he's ready." Deputy Dawson touched the brim of her hat. "Will do. One last piece of business. We're still investigating the cause of his truck fire. The mechanic who looked at it says the wiring was shot. Derek might have known, but drove it anyway. Could have ended a lot worse if you hadn't been there." Sam gave a modest shrug. "Just happened to be in the right spot. I'm glad he's alive, that's all." The deputy then took her leave, and Sam returned to his chores. Yet all through that day, as he replaced a few missing fence staples and cleared debris from the orchard, his thoughts wandered to Derek. The man had served as a firefighter for decades, giving others the same sort of rescue that Sam had given him. It struck Sam as a curious full circle. If Derek was well enough, maybe Sam could glean more about that life. He found himself eager to do so. Maybe because the last few days had already shown him how fiercely firefighters looked after their own. The best part of that selfless spirit might live on in Derek himself. That evening, Sam tried once again to guess the dog's name. "Chief? Smokey? Blaze?" he joked while offering it a leftover piece of chicken. The dog stared at him with unblinking eyes, then wagged its tail. No spark of recognition. Sam chuckled, letting the matter drop. He cleaned up, folded laundry, and fell asleep earlier than usual, anticipating the possibility of a hospital visit. The phone rang just after dawn the next day. Sam, bleary-eyed, snatched it from his bedside table. Deputy Dawson's voice greeted him on the line. "He's clear for a short visit this afternoon if you're up for it. I can swing by at 1 o'clock. Sam rubbed sleep from his eyes and glanced out the window. The dog lay sprawled on the porch in the early sunlight, muzzle resting on its paws. "Yes, I'll be ready." By noon, Sam had washed up and put on his cleanest flannel shirt, feeling oddly like he was preparing for a job interview. The dog seemed to sense something was different, following Sam around with quiet insistence. Eventually, Sam had to close it in the side yard so it wouldn't try to jump into the deputy's cruiser. Once Deputy Dawson arrived, Sam climbed into the passenger seat, arms folded over a mild case of nerves as they pulled onto the county road. The hospital was a modest single-story complex in the next county's only real town. Deputy Dawson led Sam through a warren of hallways that smelled of antiseptic and laundry soap. They stopped outside a small room. "He's inside," she said softly. "Doctors said to keep it short, but he's been waiting." Taking a breath, Sam stepped in. His first glimpse of Derek Mills was of a lean-faced man propped up by pillows, bandages peeking from under his hospital gown. A tiredness haunted his features, but his eyes were sharp. A slight smile crossed his lips when he saw Sam. "You're Sam," he rasped, voice hoarse from the smoke damage. "Thank you for coming." Sam cleared his throat, feeling 10 kinds of awkward. "You're welcome. Glad you're doing better." Derek gestured at a plastic chair by the bed. "Sit, or I'll feel like a patient instead of your host." Sam obliged, placing his hat on his lap. He couldn't help noticing the small details. Derek's left hand, scarred from old burns. A half-healed cut over his eyebrow, likely from the accident. And the ring finger that bore a faint tan line but no band. He didn't know Derek's personal story, but it must have been a tumultuous one. "I owe you my life," Derek said quietly. "The doc said another minute or two in that cab and I might not have made it." He paused, swallowing. "And you saved Ranger too. That dog's everything to me." Ranger, Sam thought. So that was the dog's name. Inwardly, he felt relief at finally having the answer, tinged with sadness at the thought of losing the companion who'd fit so neatly into his daily routine. "Well, Ranger's fine," Sam assured him. "He's safe at my place and you can come fetch him whenever you're on your feet. No rush. He's good company." Derek's expression softened. "Thank you. I'd meant to leave him in a kennel before I set out, but money got tight. Never expected my old truck to catch fire. Figures, though, after ignoring all those blinking warning lights." Sam nodded thoughtfully. "I gather you were traveling, looking for work or just passing through." A faint shadow crossed Derek's face. "A little of both. I retired from the Mapleton Fire Department a couple years back. Didn't have much in savings. Lost my house. Decided to see if I could find side jobs on the road. Should have replaced the truck, but I guess I was stubborn." Silence lingered for a moment, heavy with unspoken regrets. Sam found himself wanting to reassure the man that life would turn a corner. "You know," he ventured, "if you ever want a place to stay while you get sorted, my farm's not fancy, but there's an old bunkhouse I could clean out. You'd be welcome, though, only if it's something you'd want." Derek blinked, surprise and emotion flickering across his features. "I couldn't impose." "It's not imposing," Sam interjected, remembering the generosity of those firefighters. "Sometimes we all need a hand. I'd be lying if I said my place couldn't use an extra set of skills, and I suspect a retired firefighter might have a few talents I don't." Derek hesitated, eyes darting as though searching for hidden motives. Finding none, he nodded slowly. "Let me think about it. I can't pay much, but—" "No talk of money," Sam said, raising a hand. "We can figure out something fair for both of us, if it comes to that." A nurse bustled in then, checking Derek's vitals and reminding them to keep it brief. Sam stood, placing his hat back on his head. He offered a firm handshake. "I'm glad you're on the mend, Derek. Ranger will be waiting. If you decide you want to bunk at my place for a while, just let me know."
"Thank you," Derek murmured, genuine gratitude filling his voice.
I'll be in touch soon." Deputy Dawson escorted Sam out, and they drove home in companionable quiet. Sam's thoughts spun with possibilities. He had no illusions that life on the farm was easy, or that Derek would seamlessly slide into it. But he knew in his bones that every day was a chance to show the same compassion that had been shown to him. Derek Mills might have lost his house and truck, but maybe there was still space for him in this wide-open farmland, a place to rebuild or to rest, whichever he needed. Back at the farm, Ranger greeted Sam with the most exuberant welcome yet. Sam knelt down and ruffled the dog's ears. "Ranger," he said softly, testing the name on his tongue. The dog looked up, ears twitching, then let out a single bright bark of recognition as if to say, "Yes, that's me." Sam's throat tightened. "He's alive, boy, and he says thank you. Might be coming here to stay if we're lucky." Ranger placed a paw on Sam's knee, gazing into his face as though comprehending every word. In that moment, Sam thought he glimpsed a future of shared burdens and second chances, a stranger-made friend, a dog who'd found a new home, and a farm that just might become the perfect place to piece together a life that had gone up in flames. Standing there in the soft hush of twilight, Sam silently prayed that this was only the beginning of something good and lasting for them all. One crisp midweek morning, Sam woke to the familiar rasp of Ranger pawing at the screen door. The nails tapped a quick staccato on the wood, urging him awake. Outside, dawn gilded the barley fields, dew shimmering like scattered diamonds. Sam rose, crossed the farmhouse's warped boards, and let Ranger in. The dog bounced with excitement, as if eager for a new day's promise. Over a week had passed since Sam's hospital visit, but he still felt a subtle thrill of anticipation whenever he thought about Derek's uncertain future. In those quiet days, Sam threw himself into chores, patching orchard fences, tidying the bunkhouse, and organizing tools. That modest, single-room structure had housed migrant pickers in summers long gone. Now its dusty corners hid everything from broken rake heads to ancient feed sacks. Sam replaced a cracked window pane, swept the boards thoroughly, and set fresh linens on the cot. Though no new calls came, Sam prepared with patient resolve. Each morning, Ranger followed at his heels, a steadfast shadow in the brightening light, as if sharing Sam's silent hope. 4 mornings after Sam's last hospital visit, he finished hauling feed sacks beside the barn when Ranger barked sharply. Glancing up, Sam spotted a battered gray sedan rattling onto the property. Heart thudding, he dropped the sack and walked forward to greet whoever emerged. The sedan door opened, revealing Derek Mills, bandaged forearm held close, pale but determined. Relief and worry mingled in Sam's chest. Derek looked thinner and drawn, as if exhaustion clung to him. Ranger bounded toward him, tail wagging like a flag in the breeze, thrilled at this reunion. Derek crouched awkwardly, greeting the delighted dog. "Hey, buddy, miss me?" he rasped, voice as rough as worn leather. Ranger answered with fervent tail thumps. Sam stepped closer, offering Derek a steadying arm as he rose. "You certain you're up for leaving the hospital?" Sam asked, concern etched across his face. Derek shrugged, lips twisting in a wry attempt at a smile. "They approved outpatient rehab. I can handle checkups as needed. Felt better to come here than waste money on motels." Sam nodded. "Glad you did. The bunkhouse is waiting exactly as promised." They walked across the yard with Ranger prancing around them, as though herding them forward. The bunkhouse, tucked beneath a tall elm, bore peeling paint and squeaky floorboards. But Sam had scrubbed it thoroughly. Inside, Derek deposited his ragged duffel on the bed. A battered table, 2 mismatched chairs, and a tiny fridge stood near the window. Afternoon sunlight revealed dancing motes of dust that almost sparkled in the air. "This is more than I dared hope," Derek murmured. Sam nodded. "It's basic, but it's yours for as long as you need." After settling Derek, they discussed a plan. Derek insisted on paying rent, but Sam waved the idea away, asking him instead to focus on healing first. At noon, they sat in Sam's cozy kitchen, slicing tomatoes for sandwiches. The aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the yeasty scent of homemade bread. Derek ate slowly, clearly fatigued, but his eyes brightened whenever Ranger ambled over for scraps. Quiet conversation flowed, each man cautious yet eager to learn more about the other's story. In early afternoon, Sam led Derek into the bright fields. Barley stalks swayed in a gentle breeze that rustled like distant whispers. Sam demonstrated the new irrigation pump, proud of how smoothly it ran. Derek asked questions about pressure gauges and water rotation, taking in every detail with the practiced curiosity of someone who once thrived on routine checks. Ranger bounded ahead, occasionally peering back to ensure they followed. Stopping at the orchard's fence, Derek rested a hand on the posts. "I heard about how these got fixed. People sure came through for you." Sam exhaled slowly, recalling that remarkable day. "I'm still in awe of the kindness strangers showed. Thought I'd be patching this orchard fence alone until I was 80. Derek offered a crooked smile, eyes shining with understanding. "Firefighters have each other's backs. You became part of that circle when you saved me." They strolled on, the farm's quiet broken only by chirping birds and the crunch of gravel underfoot. Seeing Derek's shoulders slump a little, Sam suggested they head back before weariness overcame him. Once home, they settled on the porch, sipping iced tea that Sam brewed strong and sweet. Derek opened up about the financial woes that had driven him across state lines, how he'd tried to find odd jobs but struggled after medical bills piled up. Sam mentioned the old tractor that needed new spark plugs, hoping Derek might help when he felt steadier. Ranger stretched out between them, muzzle resting on Derek's foot, as though making sure he wouldn't vanish again. Evening brought a faint orange glow across the fields, and Sam invited Derek to stay for a simple stew. Derek, though wincing from sore ribs, offered to chop carrots. His presence cast a novel warmth over Sam's worn kitchen. Ranger dozed at their feet, occasionally lifting his head to sniff the savory air. After supper, Derek retired to the bunkhouse with a grateful smile. Alone in his living room, Sam realized how rare it felt to end the day with company rather than echoes of regret. Over the following days, Derek carved out a cautious routine. Each morning, he joined Sam for dawn coffee, then walked Ranger around the perimeter while Sam tended livestock. Sometimes he paused to knead his bandaged side, but he refused to retreat into idleness. He swept the barn, stacked feed sacks, and even tried hauling a small load of fencing supplies. Pain forced him to stop, but he pressed forward. Ranger never strayed far, trotting protectively at Derek's heel. Sam, noticing Derek's grimaces, forced him to sit in the shade whenever he saw signs of overexertion. One afternoon, they shared a moment of reflective silence, watching clouds drift in the brilliant sky. Derek confided that letting others help was harder than he'd expected, but Sam reassured him. "We all lean on someone eventually." The confession seemed to ease Derek's guard, and he confided more about his late wife, though always in measured fragments. Sam respected the boundaries, sensing that grief was a slow unravel. Deputy Dawson dropped by to check on Derek's progress midweek. She was pleased with the pace of his recovery, though she reminded him about upcoming rehab appointments. Derek thanked her, acknowledging how the department and entire county had shown him compassion beyond measure. Ranger pressed close, tail wagging at the deputy, who offered him a treat. Sam observed from the porch, moved by how seamlessly Derek was integrating into this quiet farmland life. By Sunday, the orchard's leaves shimmered in dawn's pearly light as Derek stood at the fence absorbing the new day. Sam stepped up, coffee mug in hand, studying Derek's thoughtful expression. "I never expected to find a home in a place like this," Derek admitted softly. Sam nodded. "Neither did I, once upon a time. But we make a home where we're needed." Ranger ambled over, nuzzling Derek's leg with affectionate insistence. Together, they watched a flock of meadowlarks rise from the tall grass, feeling a cautious hope that life, at last, was moving forward. The following week found Derek adjusting more confidently to farm life, though occasional twinges in his ribs reminded him that healing was far from complete. Each morning he rose with Sam to check the orchard fence line, where bud-laden branches promised an abundant harvest. Ranger trotted happily between them, tail wagging at the slightest sign of attention. Though Sam often worried that Derek pushed himself too hard, the younger man insisted that staying idle would only feed the restlessness threatening to unravel his newfound peace. With cautious determination, Derek began to tackle small repairs around the property that Sam had postponed for years. He tightened loose screws on the sagging porch steps, replaced rusted hinges on the chicken coop, and even cleared a clogged gutter. Watching Derek climb a ladder with a hammer tucked in his belt, Sam couldn't help feeling both admiration and concern. But Derek would flash a reassuring grin whenever Sam hovered too closely, reminding him that he still remembered how to handle himself safely. Even so, Sam insisted that Derek schedule his physical therapy sessions at the local rehab clinic. Deputy Dawson arranged transportation for him twice a week, ensuring he never missed an appointment. On those days, Sam would notice the quiet hush around the farm in Derek's absence. It amazed him how swiftly the man had become part of the daily routine. Ranger, too, sulked whenever Derek left, curling up on the porch as though waiting for the engine's hum to signal his friend's return. In time, Derek began returning with subtle signs of progress. Lighter steps, straighter posture, an easier laugh at dinner. He still refused to talk much about his days in the Mapleton Fire Department. Sam sensed regret behind his eyes whenever conversation strayed too close to old pains or personal tragedies. Instead, Derek spoke readily about the orchard or the barley fields. He asked Sam about harvest seasons and crop rotations, curious as though discovering a new calling. One afternoon, while they sorted supplies in the barn, Derek hesitantly proposed an idea. What if we expand the orchard? There's that unused patch of land behind the pond that might be suitable for more trees. Sam tapped a weathered crate thoughtfully. I've thought of that, but never had the manpower or resources. Land might not be the best soil, but with care it could produce decent fruit. Derek nodded, eyes bright. If you're up for it, maybe we can apply for a small agricultural grant. I've been reading about them online. That might help cover the cost of seedlings and irrigation lines. I wouldn't mind tackling the paperwork. Surprised, Sam studied Derek's earnest expression. The man had once navigated the complexities of municipal budgets and firehouse funding, so perhaps he had the know-how. Let's give it a try, Sam agreed quietly. Their partnership had begun as an act of mercy in a burning truck. Now, it was evolving into a shared vision for the land. The next day, Derek brought out his laptop, setting it on Sam's kitchen table. Over strong coffee, they pored over state grant forms, referencing soil surveys and orchard guidelines. Sam marveled at Derek's focus. Though he occasionally rubbed a sore shoulder, he typed with swift precision. By noon, they had a preliminary draft filled with data on rainfall averages, local climate, and projected yields. We'll need to gather more specifics, Derek said, eyes flicking from the screen to Sam. But this is a good start. Sam nodded. We've got time. The next Orchard Expo's in a month or so. Could be a chance to network with horticulture experts. Smiling, Derek saved the document. Sounds like a plan. As days blended into weeks, news spread through the county about Derek's presence on the farm. A few neighbors dropped by out of curiosity, never missing a chance to remind Sam how unusual it was to host a near stranger. Yet each left impressed by Derek's polite manner and the easy camaraderie he shared with Sam. Some nights the two men grilled steaks over an outdoor fire pit or shared quiet reflection on the porch swing as Ranger dozed. The orchard trees rustled softly, and a half-moon gleamed above them, making the farmland glow in silver relief. One evening, Derek confided that he had reached out to his sister, though he hadn't heard back. Sam listened without judgment, gently pressing Derek to keep hope alive. Over time, the bunkhouse took on a more lived-in look. Derek nailed a framed photo of his firefighting crew to the wall, carefully placing it near the battered duffel that still held his few belongings. Sam noticed a patch on the duffel's side embroidered with the Mapleton FD insignia. Each day, Derek's posture seemed less weighed down by the burdens of the past. However, healing seldom flows in a straight line. Near the end of that second week, a violent headache struck Derek one afternoon as he was repairing the orchard gate. He staggered, dropping the wrench, and pressed a trembling hand to his temple. Alarmed, Sam rushed over. "I'm fine," Derek mumbled, though sweat beaded on his forehead. Sam coaxed him to the farmhouse, forcibly guiding him to lie down on the living room couch. Ranger hovered anxiously. Derek tried to wave them off, but it was clear he needed rest. Sam offered water and an ice pack, suspecting the lingering aftermath of smoke inhalation or medication side effects. "Let me call someone," Sam insisted, phone in hand. Derek weakly shook his head. "No hospital, just give me a minute." Concern warred with Sam's instinct to respect Derek's wishes. Ultimately, Derek's color returned after a short nap. He sat up, bleary-eyed but resolute. "I have these episodes sometimes. Doctor said it's from the trauma, plus migraines that come and go." Sam pressed him to schedule an extra checkup. Derek hesitated, then finally nodded. Early next morning, Sam drove him to the clinic. The staff ran some tests, concluding that his symptoms, while worrying, could be managed with medication and proper rest. The relief Sam felt was tangible as they headed home. Even so, a renewed caution settled over both men. They understood that Derek's path to full recovery would include setbacks. The orchard project continued, though Derek paced himself more carefully. Sam took on extra tasks, reined in his own impatience, and made sure to plan around Derek's therapy days. The synergy between them remained strong, built on mutual respect. In quiet moments, they marveled at how a chance meeting in a fiery truck had led to this unlikely alliance. One golden afternoon, while picking early apples from the orchard's lower branches, Derek paused to watch Sam coax Ranger away from a rabbit hole. The dog barked in protest, then trotted back with a comedic huff. Derek laughed, the sound ringing free. It reminded Sam of the small joys that sustained them. They shared a fresh apple, biting into crisp sweetness as sunlight filtered through leaves. Derek wiped juice from his chin, gazing at the orchard. "Never thought I'd be here, living on a farm, figuring out a second chance." Sam patted his shoulder. "You've earned a safe place." Derek's eyes flickered with gratitude. "Maybe we both have." By the time evening rolled in, they had a bucket brimming with apples. Sam planned to bake a pie, his mother's old recipe that he hadn't used in years. Derek teased him about the intricacies of baking, and Sam teased back that a man who faced fires daily ought not fear a little flour. Ranger, blissfully unconcerned, followed them inside, tail beating a cheerful tattoo on the floor. In the kitchen, Sam read the faded recipe aloud. Derek measured ingredients, carefully double-checking each step. The little house smelled heavenly as the pie baked, cinnamon and apples blending with the easy hush of conversation. When it was done, they lingered over generous slices, savoring the warm comfort. Derek closed his eyes, leaning back. "I didn't realize how much I missed simple pleasures like this." Sam nodded, gaze resting on the orchard visible through the window, silhouetted by the moon. "Sometimes, letting yourself rest is the bravest thing, especially when you've spent your life saving others." That night, Derek returned to the bunkhouse, still inhaling the sweet aroma of apples and warmth. Ranger trailed after him for a while, then came back to Sam's porch. Darkness settled gently, the farmland drifting into a quiet hush. Sitting on his porch swing, Sam listened to the crickets. A sense of relief coursed through him that Derek's headache crisis had passed. Yet he also felt protective, anxious that any day might bring new challenges. Outside, orchard leaves rustled, carrying the faint promise of renewal. Sam rocked slowly, thinking about the orchard expansion and the hopeful grant application. They had reason to believe that better days lay ahead. The farm had never felt more alive, nor the future more uncertain, but for once that uncertainty felt less like dread and more like possibility. Eventually Sam turned in, drifting off with the realization that home was no longer merely fields and a house. It was the people sharing those fields, forging fragile bonds that outlasted sorrow. In the bunkhouse, Derek also settled into uneasy sleep, pain meds taking the edge off his lingering aches. In the dark, he listened to Ranger's soft breathing near the door. Tomorrow there would be orchard chores, therapy sessions, and maybe more forms to file for the grant. Clutching the fleeting solace of that evening's pie, Derek let himself hope that bit by bit, his life might bloom again in this farmland's embrace. And so, as midnight stars blinked over the barley, two men, one dog and a modest orchard, prepared for another dawn, each carrying forward the quiet resolve to mend what was broken, grow something new, and guard these precious second chances with all they had. In the early morning hush, Sam stepped onto his porch, letting the first rays of sunlight spill across the worn boards. Ranger dashed ahead into the yard, an eager blur of fur. Derek followed soon after, bandaged shoulder, hidden beneath a freshly laundered flannel. Each step outside felt like a pledge to keep healing, and Sam saw an unmistakable sense of purpose in Derek's eyes. Ever since they began their orchard expansion plan in earnest, Derek had attacked every day with quiet determination, reading manuals and scouring online forums for tips on tree spacing, soil amendments, and pest control. Sam felt a flicker of pride each time he spotted Derek poring over pages of orchard data, pen in hand, dog snoring at his feet. Once they finished breakfast, scrambled eggs from Sam's coop, toast and black coffee, they gathered near the barn to review the grant paperwork. Derek's laptop rested on a makeshift table of stacked crates, screensaver flickering with an image of autumn foliage. Sam pointed out that they still needed a formal soil test for the new section of land near the pond. Derek nodded, jotting notes. Then he suggested they contact Margaret Harrison, a local orchard consultant whose name he'd come across in an old county registry. Her credentials hinted she might guide them on orchard layout and soil prep. Sam agreed it was worth a try. That same afternoon, Derek called Margaret's number, leaving a polite message. They had only a brief window to finalize soil analyses and planning before the Orchard Expo next month, so time was short. By the following morning, a voicemail arrived. Margaret would be pleased to help and could visit at week's end. Derek relayed the news with optimism, though Sam sensed a trace of nerves in his voice. After all, inviting an expert onto the farm felt like stepping into new territory. Sam had grown used to forging his own path, even if it meant certain corners of the land remained half-tended for decades. Nevertheless, the days rolled forward. Between Derek's therapy sessions, Sam's standard chores, and their orchard aspirations, they moved in a steady rhythm. On Tuesday, Sam drove Derek to the clinic in the old Chevy. The truck rattled over the dusty road, each bump stirring up swirling motes of dust behind them. Derek stared out the window, subdued whenever the orchard wasn't on his mind. Sam let him be, suspecting that flashbacks of old firefights and regrets still lurked beneath the surface. He would offer a smile or a gentle question, but never pry too deeply. Some battles, Sam knew, had to be faced alone. When Derek emerged from the clinic, he seemed paler than usual. His therapist had tried new exercises, pressing him to stretch beyond the limits of comfort. He assured Sam it went well, even as he rubbed at the back of his neck with a grimace. Ranger yipped excitedly when they returned, circling Derek's legs in welcome. They ended the day with quiet conversation over stew in Sam's kitchen, talking about orchard irrigation lines, not the pains that lay behind Derek's eyes. By the time Friday arrived, Sam and Derek had tidied the front yard and set up folding chairs in the orchard, waiting for Margaret Harrison. She arrived in a silver SUV, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and carrying a leather satchel. Tall and poised, with gray-streaked hair, she strode forward to shake their hands. Her voice carried that brisk warmth common to agricultural folk, direct but kind. "Pleasure to meet you both. I've heard you've got big plans for expansion." With Derek leading the way, they walked to the proposed orchard site behind the pond. Margaret asked detailed questions about drainage, shade patterns, and proximity to pollinators. She peered at the soil, analyzing its texture. Sam answered with his typical farmer's honesty. He knew the land's quirks, the yield of barley in wet years, and how water sometimes pooled near the northern corner. Derek supplemented with facts gleaned from orchard manuals, referencing typical rootstock recommendations. Margaret listened intently, nodding as though forming a strategy. After an hour of careful examination, Margaret wiped sweat from her brow and said, "You've got decent conditions here. I'd advise a lighter rootstock for dwarf trees, maybe apple varieties that can handle variable moisture. But we need to run some tests. Once we have the numbers, we can finalize recommendations for your grant application." They returned to the orchard's shade, sampling apples from Sam's older trees. Margaret savored a bite, her expression brightening. "These are good. Tart but with promise. More consistent watering could make them shine." She handed Derek a business card. "Send me your soil test results. I'll draft a short advisory letter to strengthen your grant proposal. Shouldn't take more than a week or two." Sam thanked her, feeling a surge of cautious excitement. Expanding had once seemed impossible, but with Derek's help and Margaret's guidance, maybe the orchard's future held more than just a small annual harvest. Ranger, dozing at the foot of a tree, perked up when Margaret said farewell, as if sensing her departure. She gave the dog a gentle pat before heading off. That evening, the two men sat on the porch steps, absorbing the possibility that, if the grant came through, they might break ground next season. Derek rested his elbows on his knees, eyes reflecting a quiet wonder. "I never pictured I'd be planning orchard expansions, but it feels right, somehow." Sam nodded. "Sometimes life leads us down roads we'd never expect." He sipped iced tea, letting the night air carry the orchard's faint perfume. "And we're forging ahead together," he added, gratefulness evident in his tone. Derek managed a thin smile, though the tightness in his expression hinted at a swirl of emotions. Something still weighed on him, but Sam resisted pressing. He only patted Derek's shoulder. One day at a time. A few days later, the soil test kit arrived by mail. Derek spent a whole afternoon collecting samples, methodically labeling jars from different spots around the proposed expansion area. He handled each step with diligence, carefully recording moisture levels. Sam watched from a distance, struck by how easily Derek channeled his old discipline into this new pursuit. He recognized that a part of Derek's identity as a firefighter, methodical, protective, had found a fresh expression in orchard planning, a constructive way to keep forging ahead. The next morning, Derek carefully packed the soil samples for mailing to a lab Margaret recommended. Ranger followed him to the mailbox, trotting along as though personally guaranteeing safe delivery. Over lunch, Sam joked that they ought to get Ranger a vest and label him Orchard Foreman, which sparked the first genuine laugh he'd heard from Derek in days. The moment felt like a small victory in the ongoing effort to ease Derek's quiet burdens. Though storms were forecast that week, the skies stayed clear until one fateful evening. Thick black clouds rolled in from the west, thunder grumbling ominously. By dusk, wind whipped across the fields, bending barley and orchard branches in fierce gusts. Sam and Derek hurried outside to secure loose tarps and feed bags. Lightning flickered, each flash illuminating Derek's tense features. He paused, scanning the sky, breath unsteady. Sam realized it might be triggering memories of past emergencies. He gently steered Derek under the porch awning. When the storm unleashed, rain pelted the roof in sheets and lightning forks lit the yard as if it were midday. Ranger pressed against Derek's legs, whining. Sam fetched lanterns in case power failed. The house shook under thunder's roar. Suddenly, Derek stood, jaw set, and moved toward the door. "I can't just sit," he murmured, voice strained. "I should patrol the orchard, make sure no branch breaks near the fence line." Sam blocked him gently. "We can't risk you out there in this. It's a proper storm. Let's wait until it eases." Derek looked poised to argue, shoulders taut, but a deafening clap rattled the windows, and Derek closed his eyes. Sam's heart twisted at the sight of him trembling beneath old trauma. "You're safe here," Sam said softly. Derek nodded, silent. They rode out the storm in the living room, lantern casting warm light over the walls. Sam brewed chamomile tea, offering Derek a mug. The whistle of wind outside was relentless, but inside, they formed an island of calm. By midnight, the worst had passed. The storm limped away to the east, leaving branches scattered and puddles shimmering in the moonlight. Sam and Derek ventured out, checking the barn and orchard. A few broken limbs, but no major damage. Relief washed over them both as they returned, dripping with leftover drizzle. Shivering slightly, Derek muttered an apology for his earlier tension. Sam only shook his head. "You have nothing to apologize for. Everyone's got scars." Derek exhaled, gaze flicking to the orchard, shimmering in the watery moonlight. When thunder roars, I think of those nights responding to calls, storms raging, people trapped in flooding basements or half-collapsed houses. Hard not to remember." Sam laid a hand on his arm. "You're not alone now." With a faint nod, Derek squeezed Sam's shoulder in silent gratitude. Then Ranger bounded over, wagging so hard his tail threatened to topple him. They all turned for the house, forging a weary solidarity against the swirling echoes of memory. Inside, Sam brewed fresh coffee, though it was well past midnight. Over steaming mugs, they reflected on how a single evening's fury had tested them. Derek's voice remained hushed, but the storm's departure loosened his rigid stance, as if acceptance was finally creeping in. "I'm here," he said, more to himself than Sam. "And that's what matters." From that night on, an unspoken bond tightened between the two men. The orchard awaited the official soil results. Storms might come and go, and Derek's body would heal in fits and starts. But neither doubted that they were forging something meaningful under the vast Montana sky. Together, they prepared for the Orchard Expo just weeks away, determined to stake their claim in the future they were building. Whatever storms still loomed, Sam and Derek faced them side by side, Ranger trotting at their heels. Heart steady with the quiet resilience only found in those who've walked through fire and come out the other side. Late summer dawned with warm breezes and a shimmering light that bathed Sam's barley fields in soft gold. Each morning seemed more hopeful than the last, as if the farmland itself recognized the promise taking root in the orchard expansion plan. Derek, still nursing aches and headaches from time to time, plowed forward with quiet resolve, and Sam caught glimpses of genuine excitement sparking in his eyes. The orchard project had grown from a half-formed concept into a tangible goal, one that coaxed Derek's mind away from old regrets and guided his spirit towards something new. That Tuesday, a letter arrived containing preliminary soil results. Derek hovered by the mailbox, heart thumping, with Ranger poised beside him, as if ready to deliver the news personally. The two men gathered at Sam's kitchen table to tear open the envelope. The typed summary confirmed what Margaret had suspected. They had workable conditions for expansion, provided they adjusted fertilizer ratios. A few lines recommended additional drainage near the pond, but nothing insurmountable. Derek exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders. Sam tapped a finger on the page, murmuring, "Looks better than I hoped." Then, with a half grin, he added, "Let's see if the Orchard Expo folks are as optimistic as these numbers." The Orchard Expo was set for the coming weekend in Helena, some 2 hours north. Margaret had urged them to attend, promising introductions to seedling suppliers and potential grant sponsors. Though Sam rarely left the county these days, he steeled himself for the trip, feeling it was the right next step. Derek, equally determined, volunteered to handle the driving. Sam glanced at Derek's still bandaged side but nodded, provided Derek felt comfortable behind the wheel. Derek insisted that a short road trip would do him good. They set out early Saturday, loading the old Chevy with orchard brochures, bottled water, and a thermos of coffee. Ranger, left behind with a kind neighbor who agreed to dog-sit, whined in protest as they pulled away. Sam felt a pang leaving him, but since the expo venue forbade pets, there was no choice. Derek navigated the narrow roads carefully, window cracked to let in fresh air. The farmland receded behind them, replaced by rolling hills, pine groves, and the occasional ranch sign proclaiming local honey or homemade pies. Sam caught Derek smiling quietly at the passing scenery, a subtle excitement in the angle of his jaw. By mid-morning, they reached Helena's modest convention center, already bustling with orchard enthusiasts. Booths stretched across the main hall, displaying everything from heirloom apple varieties to advanced irrigation systems. The air smelled faintly of citrus, hay, and newly printed pamphlets. Sam's chest tightened with mild anxiety. He wasn't used to crowds, while Derek's step slowed, scanning for Margaret's familiar face. It didn't take long for Margaret to spot them. Waving warmly, she guided them toward a high table stacked with horticultural brochures. "Welcome to the expo," Margaret said, her tone bright. "I've arranged for you to meet a grant liaison named Fiona Russell. She's reviewing orchard applications for a statewide initiative. Show her your results and expansion plan. If she's impressed, you might secure partial funding right away." Sam swallowed a flicker of nerves. "Sounds promising," he managed. Derek nodded, exuding calm he might not entirely feel. They thanked Margaret and wove through the crowd to a smaller alcove where Fiona, a brisk woman with short hair and bright earrings, sat reviewing a folder. Fiona welcomed them with a measured smile. "Margaret told me you're expanding an existing orchard on a barley farm. Mind if I see your documents?" Derek produced neatly organized pages. Orchard layout sketches, the new soil results, notes on drainage, and an early draft of their budget. Sam, standing behind Derek's shoulder, tried to read Fiona's expression. She flipped through each page, occasionally tapping her pen or murmuring, "Interesting." "These numbers look decent," she remarked after several minutes. "But I'll need to know more about your yield history, how you plan to handle pest management, and whether you'll plant any pollinator strips. Do you have those details on hand?" Derek swallowed. "We're working on the exact budget for pest control. Sam's prior orchard trees never had major infestations, but we want to be proactive." Sam chimed in, describing how local beekeepers sometimes placed hives near his fields for pollination, a potential advantage. Fiona scribbled notes, occasionally firing more questions about orchard density and watering schedules. Derek answered calmly, though Sam sensed his underlying tension. By the end, Fiona's lips curved with faint approval. "I'd call this a solid start," she said. "Send me an expanded plan by next month and we'll see about partial grant funding. The orchard's manageable size might help your case." Relief flooded Sam. Derek thanked Fiona for her time, and they stepped away, hearts lighter. Margaret, observing from a distance, offered a congratulatory nod. "You did well," she said. "Fiona's direct, but if you give her solid data, you stand a real chance." Feeling victorious, Sam and Derek wandered the expo's aisles, pausing at booths showcasing various saplings or high-tech irrigation sensors. Sam's curiosity piqued at the demonstration of solar-powered drip lines. Derek admired displays of pruning equipment, remarking how orchard maintenance wasn't so different from the discipline of firefighting. Both demanded vigilance and care. They snacked on samples of fresh cider, discovered new apple varieties that thrived in colder climates, and jotted notes for future research. The swirl of possibility expanded with every conversation. Amid the bustle, Derek glanced over a crowd near a demonstration stage and suddenly froze, color draining from his face. Sam, alarmed, followed his gaze to a tall man wearing a Mapleton Fire Department t-shirt, chatting with a booth attendant. Derek's fingers clenched involuntarily around the pamphlet in his hand. Sam touched Derek's shoulder. "You recognize him?" Derek gave a tight nod. "He was a rookie in Mapleton the year I retired. Name's Jared. We never became close, but seeing him brings back memories." Sam caught the tremor in Derek's voice. Before Sam could steer him away, Jared spotted Derek and blinked in surprise. He excused himself from the booth and walked over, expression uncertain. "Derek Mills?" Jared asked, voice laced with equal parts confusion and relief. "I heard you left Mapleton. Didn't realize you were in Montana." Derek managed a terse smile. "I ended up on a farm. Trying something new, I guess." Sam introduced himself briefly, though Jared's focus remained on Derek. They exchanged a few pleasantries about Mapleton. Jared mentioned that the department still talked about Derek's years of service, how he left quietly under difficult circumstances. Derek shifted uncomfortably, gaze flicking to Sam. Sensing Derek's tension, Sam tried to diffuse the moment. "We're here for orchard expansion," he said gently. "Keeping busy in a good way." Jared nodded, sympathy coloring his features. "I'm glad to hear you're safe. A few folks wondered if you'd come back, but if you found somewhere better, that's good." Derek swallowed, eyes misting with conflicting emotion. I don't regret the firefighting days," he said quietly, "but I needed a change." Jared placed a hand on Derek's arm. "All of us who served with you hope you find peace, man. Mapleton's door's always open if you ever want to visit." After exchanging well wishes, Jared departed to rejoin his group. Derek stood rooted, inhaling slowly, as though grappling with an unexpected wave of memory. Sam offered quiet support. "You all right?" Derek exhaled a shuddery breath. "Yeah, just caught me off guard. Seeing him reminded me that I left behind a chunk of my life. But maybe that's okay." They continued exploring the expo, albeit more subdued. Derek's mood lifted gradually when they visited a tasting booth, sampling orchard honey and hearing stories from fellow growers. By late afternoon, they felt satisfied with their progress, having gleaned new connections and leads. Margaret offered a final word of advice. "Send that updated plan soon. Fiona's thorough, but she's also fair." With grateful farewells, they left the convention center, arms loaded with brochures and contact cards. Outside, the sky glowed with the pastel hush of early evening. Sam allowed Derek to drive again, though they took it slow along highways lined with dense evergreens. At a rest stop halfway home, Sam caught Derek gazing out at the horizon, posture weighed by reflection. "I didn't realize how much I missed some folks in Mapleton," Derek admitted softly. "But I also see that I can't go back to that life. Firefighting is behind me now." Sam gave a solemn nod. "You're building something new, like we both are." Derek's lips twitched into a faint smile. "Yeah, we are." They resumed their journey under the gathering dusk, the headlights carving a path across winding roads. At last, the comforting silhouette of Sam's farmhouse appeared, porch light glowing like a beacon. Ranger dashed from the neighbor's yard to greet them, performing circles of frenzied delight. Laughing, Derek crouched to ruffle the dog's fur, letting the tension of the day drain away. Sam gathered the orchard materials, mind reeling with possibilities. Partial grants, new irrigation strategies, the orchard of tomorrow. Over a late supper, they hashed out next steps. Derek suggested scheduling a meeting with Margaret soon, plus drafting the second version of their orchard plan for Fiona. Sam, massaging tired shoulders, marveled at how the day's events left him excited rather than exhausted. The Orchard Expo had opened doors he never knew existed. Before turning in, Sam gazed at Derek, who stood in the living room, face softened by the warm glow of the lamp. "Long day," Sam said, voice hushed with gratitude. Derek nodded, eyes drifting to the old Mapleton t-shirt he'd folded among the new orchard brochures. "Long, but I feel better," he admitted. "Confronting a piece of my past helped me see I belong here, at least for now." Sam clapped him lightly on the shoulder. "Glad to hear it. Let's keep going, Derek. We'll get this orchard off the ground. One step at a time." Derek's tired smile spoke volumes. Outside, the farmland slept beneath a star-flecked sky. Together, they flicked off the lights. Ranger padded after Derek to the bunkhouse, and Sam climbed his own creaking staircase. Despite the day's surprises, both men felt a stirring hope. They were forging a new road not by forgetting the past, but by planting seeds for tomorrow. And in that calm hush of midnight, the orchard's future glowed bright, waiting for their next sunrise. A week passed after the Orchard Expo, bringing subtle shifts in the pace of daily life. Derek and Sam found themselves juggling orchard logistics, routine chores, and Derek's therapy sessions. Each evening, they revisited the notes from Fiona Russell and Margaret Harrison, drafting a cleaner version of their orchard expansion plan. Ranger trotted around them faithfully, plopping down near the table whenever the men conferred. Sam often scratched the dog's ears absently, feeling grateful for the calm presence that anchored them amid looming tasks. Late one afternoon, Sam was repairing a latch on the barn door when he noticed Derek pacing by the pond. A swirl of worry cramped Sam's stomach. Derek's posture suggested something was on his mind. Finishing the last nail, Sam ambled over. The breeze carried the scent of ripening barley, and insects danced in the waning sunlight. Derek stood at the pond's edge, arms folded, gaze distant. "You all right?" Sam asked gently, stopping a yard away. Derek glanced up. The old bruise at his temple had faded, but a shadow still lurked behind his eyes. "Just thinking about the future," he said, voice low. "Things with the orchard are progressing, but I realized I'm not sure how I fit into the long-term picture." Sam frowned. "Meaning what?" Derek exhaled, turning to swirl a stick in the pond's still water. "I know I can't rely on your generosity forever. I don't want to be a burden." Sam felt a flash of concern. "You're not a burden. This orchard expansion would be dead in the water without you." Derek's lips twitched in a small smile. "That's kind of you. But maybe there's a timeline, some point when I should move on. You've done more than enough already." Unsettled, Sam removed his hat, running a hand over his gray hair. "I haven't thought about deadlines or any such thing. Far as I'm concerned, your place is here as long as you want it. I figure we're partners in this orchard endeavor." Derek's eyes shone with gratitude, but something unresolved flickered there too. "Thanks, Sam," he murmured, letting the stick fall with a quiet splash. "Guess I've never had such stability before." A couple of days later, they set up a phone meeting with Margaret. She commended their revised orchard documents, praising the clarity of budget lines and the thorough pest control section. "Get this proposal to Fiona within a week," she urged over speakerphone. "She'll likely schedule a quick site visit. If that goes well, partial funding could arrive by early fall." Hanging up, Sam and Derek exchanged wide-eyed grins. They'd come a long way since that first uncertain conversation by the orchard fence. Ranger, drawn by their excitement, thumped his tail against the floor. That same afternoon, they decided to mark the orchard expansion boundaries with simple stakes and twine, ensuring any site visit would show clear outlines. Sam loaded extra fence posts onto the tractor trailer while Derek, wearing a soft brace for his ribs, gathered a roll of neon pink ribbon. The sky was an unbroken blue, heat radiating off the fields. Taking turns behind the tractor wheel, they aligned stakes every few yards, measuring carefully with a tape. Ranger darted around, convinced it was a game, occasionally running off with a length of ribbon. Derek chased the dog. breathless laughter cutting through the warm air. By late afternoon, they'd roped off an acre behind the pond. Stepping back, they admired the lines that hinted at future rows of trees. Derek wiped sweat from his brow, a satisfied glint in his eyes. "Seeing it laid out like this makes it feel real," he said softly. Sam nodded. "I never imagined we'd actually push forward. Now it's more than just talk." A shared sense of accomplishment gleamed between them, a testament to how far each had traveled, physically and emotionally. However, their progress was tested just 2 days later when Derek awoke at dawn with a searing headache. Sam heard him gasp from the porch, dropping a shovel he'd been carrying. Hurrying into the bunkhouse, Sam found Derek doubled over, clutching his temples. Alarmed, Sam helped him lie down, Ranger pressing his snout close in anxious concern. "Need me to call the doctor?" Sam asked. Derek shook his head, grimacing. "It'll pass. Just need rest." But Sam wasn't entirely convinced. He gently insisted they drive to the clinic. Derek grew agitated. "I can't keep running to doctors for every headache," he snapped, then immediately looked apologetic. "I'm sorry, it's just... these migraines are humiliating." Sam, stung but understanding, kept his tone calm. "You can't heal if you pretend it's all fine. Let's at least phone your doctor." Derek groaned but gave in, allowing Sam to place the call. The clinic advised Derek to come in for an evaluation, suspecting new medication might be required. The drive felt somber, each bump magnifying Derek's pain. Sam tried to keep conversation light, but Derek spoke little, eyes squeezed shut behind sunglasses. After an examination, the clinic staff prescribed a stronger medication for migraines linked to post-traumatic stress. Derek's frustrations simmered, though he managed to thank the doctor politely. On the way back, Sam offered to pick up lunch, but Derek declined, quietly saying he just wanted to lie down. When they got home, Derek retreated to the bunkhouse. That evening he skipped dinner, though Sam left a plate of soup outside his door. Ranger hovered uncertainly, torn between bunkhouse and farmhouse. Sam coaxed the dog inside, kneading worry in his chest. He reminded himself that Derek had faced multiple setbacks before. By nightfall, a hush fell over the farmland, and Sam prayed that rest would soothe Derek's pain. Sure enough, by morning Derek was upright again, still looking pale but more lucid. He apologized, his voice subdued. "Didn't mean to snap at you," he told Sam over coffee. Sam waved off the apology gently. "We're all allowed to hit rough patches." Derek nodded gratefully, sipping gingerly. The orchard tasks proceeded more slowly that day, with Sam handling physical labor while Derek tackled the final updates for Fiona's proposal. The dog shadowed them both, a silent sentinel. A few afternoons later, an official envelope arrived from Fiona Russell's office. Inside was a short letter confirming that she would visit in 1 week, along with Margaret, to review the orchard site. Derek let out a shaky laugh as Sam read the letter aloud in the farmhouse kitchen. "Well, that's it," Sam said, exhaling. "No turning back now." They spent the subsequent days fine-tuning small details, straightening lines around the pond, drafting an outline for orchard maintenance. Derek borrowed Sam's dusty old camera to snap photos of the existing trees, hoping to create a concise portfolio. Each morning, they crossed tasks off a growing list on the fridge, fueling themselves with cautious optimism. When the day of Fiona's visit dawned, the sky was mercifully clear and bright. Sam rose before sunup, tidying the yard, ensuring tools were stowed. Derek double-checked the orchard boundary stakes, bandaged ribs hidden beneath a neat flannel. Ranger, sensing the tension, prowled around them, occasionally letting out small barks as if to muster encouragement. By mid-morning, a silver sedan rolled down the farm's lane. Fiona stepped out, wearing practical boots and a straightforward expression. Margaret followed close behind, smiling a greeting. A wave of nerves rolled through Sam, but Derek stood at his side, exuding quiet composure. "Morning," Fiona said briskly. I'm eager to see these potential orchard rows. Sam led them across the yard, explaining how they use the pink ribbon to mark each row. Derek supplied details about soil drainage, referencing an organized folder of lab results. Margaret chimed in with occasional clarifications, nodding approvingly at the neat lines in the well-maintained existing trees. As the small group walked, Ranger tried to nose close to Fiona. She regarded the dog with an amused half-smile. "He's friendly," Sam said quickly. Fiona only nodded, apparently unbothered. After inspecting the site, Fiona asked to see the orchard portfolio. Derek displayed the printed photos of Sam's older apple trees, plus typed notes about planned pollinator strips. Fiona flicked through the pages, occasionally pausing to question their pesticide approach and irrigation capacity. Derek answered calmly, describing the new irrigation pump and how they intended to reduce chemical reliance through companion planting. Sam observed Fiona's face, searching for signs of approval or skepticism. He found little hint. She thanked them for their thoroughness, then retreated with Margaret to discuss something in low tones. At last, they rejoined Sam and Derek near the barn. Fiona slid the papers back into her leather folder. "I'm impressed by the initiative here," she said in an even tone. "You've prepared carefully, and Margaret speaks well of your readiness. Once I finalize my report, I'll recommend you for partial funding from our orchard development program." Sam felt a tremor of relief, his chest almost too tight to speak. Derek's eyes gleamed, though he restrained his reaction. Margaret patted Derek's arm. "Congratulations, both of you." They concluded with a few final questions about timelines, required permits, and cost estimates. Fiona told them to expect an official letter within 2 weeks. Then, after cordial handshakes, Fiona and Margaret departed. As the sedan vanished down the county road, Sam realized he'd been holding his breath. Derek broke into a wide grin that momentarily banished all worry lines. "We actually did it," he said, voice trembling with excitement. Sam nodded, heart pounding. Ranger bounded around them, picking up on their exhilaration. The day felt like a turning point. Over a simple lunch at the porch table, sandwiches and iced tea, they savored the notion that all their planning might bear fruit, quite literally. Sam raised his glass, meeting Derek's gaze. "To tomorrow," he murmured. "And the orchard will grow together." Derek tapped his glass in agreement, humility and gratitude shining in his face. In that quiet moment, they realized that their partnership had become more than a rescue story or a business plan. It was a steady bond, forged in adversity, nurtured by trust, and blossoming toward a future as boundless as the open sky. The next morning, Sam awoke to a pale sun edging over the barley. Clouds had moved in overnight, casting cool shadows on the farmyard. Over a quick breakfast of oatmeal and black coffee, he read the orchard notes Derek had typed the previous evening. The writing brimmed with bright optimism, references to new apple varieties, improved pollination strips, and a future orchard sign welcoming visitors. Sam's chest swelled with pride at how far they'd come. When Sam stepped outside, he spotted Derek tending to Ranger, a gentle hand on the dog's scruff. Derek's bandages were gone now, revealing faint scars across his ribs and shoulder. Though his posture seemed stronger, Sam didn't miss the lingering caution in the way Derek moved. The migraine still lurked, but he hadn't complained in days. Sam approached, hands in his pockets. "We should finalize that orchard supply list, huh?" Derek nodded, a smile touching his lips. "Absolutely. Let's call some nurseries and see what seedlings they have available." They spent the morning at the kitchen table, laptops open, contacting regional nurseries that specialized in hardy apple cultivars. Derek's fingertips flew over the keyboard, cross-referencing pollination charts, while Sam placed calls to compare shipping rates. They laughed when one supplier asked if they intended to plant enough trees for a tourist orchard, and Sam realized that, while they aimed to expand, they'd still keep the farm's quiet simplicity. Outside, Ranger gazed at them through the screen door, as if aware of the significance of every phone call. Later, Derek excused himself for a midday break at the bunkhouse. Sam suspected the old restlessness had crept up again. He let Derek go, trusting he just needed a moment alone. Meanwhile, Sam headed for the orchard to prune a few branches weighed down by half-ripe apples. The orchard's hush calmed him. He recalled the earliest days of caring for these trees on his own, feeling small in the face of nature's demands. Now he had a partner, someone who brought diligence and heart to the project. An hour later, footsteps crunched on the path. Sam glanced over his shoulder to see Derek approaching, wearing a distant, unsettled look. Sam set aside his pruning shears. "What's wrong?" Derek drew a slow breath, glancing around as if to steady himself. "I got a phone call," he replied, voice subdued. "It was my sister, Kelly." Sam knew that name only by passing reference. Derek had mentioned an estranged sister back east, but never in detail. "What did she say?" Sam asked carefully. Derek folded his arms. "She heard from an old mutual friend that I was in Montana. She's known about the truck fire, about me not making it. She wants to visit." Sam waited, giving Derek space to elaborate. Derek shook his head, brow creased. "We haven't spoken since I quit the fire department. She blamed me for shutting out the family, and I blamed her for not understanding my burnout. Now she's asking if she can see me. Says she wants to know I'm truly okay." After a long pause, Sam said quietly, "Maybe it could help. You've come a long way, but those old wounds haven't vanished." Derek's gaze rested on an apple branch, heavy with fruit. "I'm scared she'll bring up everything I tried to leave behind. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's time we face it." Ranger padded over, nose nudging Derek's hand, as though agreeing that letting people in might not be so bad. By late afternoon, the matter was decided. Kelly would arrive in 3 days, flying into the nearest regional airport and renting a car to drive the final stretch. Derek fidgeted with the orchard plan to distract himself, but Sam spotted that old tension creeping back into his posture. "It'll be all right," Sam said softly that evening, setting a plate of warm biscuits on the table. "You aren't the same person who left Mapleton. Your orchard plans prove that." Derek nodded, forcing a faint grin. "Thanks. Let's hope she sees it too." Those 3 days flew by in a flurry of orchard chores and final touches for Fiona's official letter. Sam and Derek penned a short statement of intent describing how partial grant funding would transform the farmland. The last paragraph brimmed with earnest gratitude for the chance to expand. With Margaret's final suggestions, they sealed the envelope and planned to mail it first thing in the morning. Then, not an hour later, Derek's phone chimed with Kelly's text. "Landed. Be there soon." Sam tried to mask his own nervousness. He rummaged around the kitchen, discreetly clearing away clutter and wiping counters. Derek hovered by the porch, arms crossed, eyes on the driveway. Ranger paced at his feet, sensing excitement or tension. Finally, the rumble of wheels on gravel announced her arrival. A small navy blue car rolled up, and a slender woman with auburn hair climbed out, scanning the yard. Derek stepped forward, hesitating at first. Sam watched from the porch, giving them space. Kelly approached her brother slowly, expression uncertain. "Derek," she breathed, eyes brimming with conflicting emotion. Derek offered an awkward half-smile. "Kelly." They embraced stiffly, as though unsure whether comfort was allowed after so long apart. Then Kelly drew back, studying him. "You look better than I expected," she murmured, gaze flicking to his faint scars. "But so different." Derek introduced Sam, who nodded politely. Kelly thanked Sam for saving her brother, but Sam waved it off gently. "Just did what anyone would. I'm glad Derek's here." Kelly's face softened at the sincerity in Sam's voice. Then she crouched to greet Ranger, who sniffed her hand with tail wag approval. They gathered in the living room, where Kelly removed her jacket and perched on the sofa, posture rigid. Derek sat across from her, fiddling with the corner of a cushion. Sam offered sweet tea, then retreated to the kitchen, sensing they needed privacy. From behind a slightly ajar door, he heard muffled conversation punctuated by silence. Kelly's tone wavered between concern and relief. Derek's replies were subdued but honest. At one point, Kelly's voice rose with frustration, only to quiet as Derek murmured something. After a while, Sam ventured out to see if they needed anything. He found them with red-rimmed eyes, though they managed small smiles. "We're okay," Derek said quietly, and Kelly nodded. "He's told me about the orchard, about how you two have formed a sort of partnership," she said. "I'm grateful he found a place where he can heal." Her gaze held a fragile blend of regret and hope. They spent the afternoon touring the farm. Kelly exclaimed over the orchard, complimenting Derek's layout stakes. She asked polite questions about tree varieties and soil preparation, clearly trying to understand the scope of this new life. Sam answered her with the same honesty he'd give a fellow farmer, describing how orchard expansions might attract local produce markets. Derek's face lit up, talking about the orchard's future, and Kelly listened with genuine interest. Only once did tears threaten, when she noticed how Derek sometimes paused to collect himself, as if pushing away old ghosts. By dusk, they shared supper at Sam's worn dining table. Ranger curled beneath Derek's chair, tail occasionally thumping. Kelly complimented the stew and biscuits, praising Sam's cooking. Halfway through the meal, Kelly hesitantly asked Derek about Mapleton, how he felt seeing old firefighting colleagues at the expo. Derek admitted it was painful, but clarifying. "I realize I'm not that man anymore," he said. "I'm someone who can nurture life in these fields." Kelly nodded, blinking back tears. "You sound, at peace," she whispered. "I'm proud of you, big brother." Derek gripped her hand, the air charged with unspoken apologies for all the lost time. After dinner, Sam excused himself outside to give them a moment alone. The sky glowed deep purple. He leaned on the porch rail, letting the night sounds wash over him. Sometimes it amazed him how the simplest things, fresh air, the sigh of wind in barley, could provide clarity. He sensed that Derek was confronting the final piece of his past, forging a path to genuine closure. Sam recalled how uncertain Derek had been about letting Kelly visit. Now he felt relieved that she had come. When Kelly finally emerged, Sam straightened. She stepped onto the porch with a small smile, crossing her arms against the evening chill. "Derek's resting. He's worn out," she explained. Then she breathed a laugh. "He told me how you saved him, gave him a place to stay, and encouraged him through every setback. I can't thank you enough, Sam. I was afraid I'd lose my brother altogether." Sam shook his head gently. "He's the one who's done the work of rebuilding his life. I just offered the roof." Kelly's eyes shimmered. "Still, you're a good man for letting a stranger in like that. It's not something many would do. This orchard project means the world to him." They lingered a while, talking softly about Derek's future. Kelly revealed she'd taken time off work, uncertain if Derek might need her to stay. Sam assured her that Derek was in capable hands, though he suggested she remain as long as it took for brother and sister to reconnect. She agreed, relief evident. Morning arrived with a light drizzle, the sky overcast but brightening. Kelly sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee with Derek, a gentle hush between them. Sam and Ranger patrolled the yard, checking that orchard stakes remained intact despite the rain. Through the screen door, Sam glimpsed Kelly hugging Derek, saw him rest his forehead on her shoulder. It was a small, profound moment that spoke of forgiveness finally found. That afternoon, Kelly decided to drive back to her rental place near the airport, promising to visit again soon. She embraced Sam in thanks, tears sparkling. Then she and Derek parted with an understanding that their estrangement would no longer define them. As her car disappeared down the gravel road, Derek stood by Sam, exhaling with shaky relief. "I'm exhausted," he admitted, but the quiet glow in his eyes betrayed a sense of release. Sam placed a hand on Derek's back. "Proud of you," he said simply. Derek nodded, a new softness in his features. "I feel lighter. Maybe now I can really move forward." Ranger circled them both, as though herding them toward the orchard. The drizzle eased, revealing a pale sun. In that gentle light, Sam and Derek turned their eyes to the orchard boundaries, reminded that a living future awaited them. Past hurts were yielding to new growth, and in the hush of the farmland, they found a space big enough to hold both sorrow and joy. 1 week after Kelly's departure, the orchard's promise glowed more brightly than ever. Fiona's official letter arrived on a sunlit afternoon, confirming the partial funding approval. Derek retrieved the envelope from the mailbox, heart pounding, and jogged to where Sam repaired a drip line near the old apple trees. Sam paused, taking off his straw hat, and they tore the letter open right there in the orchard. The neat paragraph spelled out a grant sum large enough to kickstart their expansion. Ranger danced around them as if sensing their excitement, barking sharply at every exclamation. They spread the letter on a makeshift table, a flat board balanced on 2 crates. Reading the fine print, Derek tapped a clause requiring progress reports every quarter. Sam nodded. "We can handle that," he said, voice steady. His eyes shone with a mixture of relief and pride. Derek flashed a grin that crinkled his scarred brow. "I never thought I'd see the day," he murmured. "We're on our way, Sam." Within days, the farm buzzed with new energy. Derek and Sam placed orders for young apple saplings, disease-resistant varieties that Margaret had recommended, and arranged a schedule for properly planting them come early autumn. Every dawn found them double-checking orchard boundaries, measuring row spacing, and clearing brush near the pond. Sam's battered old tractor, newly tuned, chugged across the plot, turning soil that had lain fallow for years. Whenever Derek tired, he'd rest in the shade, mapping out daily tasks in a spiral notebook. Ranger always stayed close, panting in the summer heat but refusing to leave his companions. News of the orchard expansion trickled through the county, and neighbors came by occasionally to chat or offer help. One retired teacher donated a few beehives for pollination, promising to maintain them during bloom. A local carpenter friend built a sturdy sign that read, "Walker and Mills Orchard," in bold letters which Sam and Derek debated mounting at the lane's entrance. Sam felt uneasy about his name being front and center, but Derek insisted. "You saved me, gave me a home. It's only right we honor both of us," Derek said, gaze firm. Sam relented, touched by the gesture. Not long after, Margaret visited to ensure they were prepared for the sapling deliveries. She strolled through the orchard lines, tapping the new stakes with a satisfied nod. She admired the clear irrigation channels, the roll of weed cloth ready for mulching. Turning to Derek, she asked how his health was holding up. Derek admitted he still struggled with migraines, but that each day felt less burdened than before. Margaret smiled, pressing a gentle hand to his shoulder. "Keep that sense of progress," she said warmly. Sam, standing nearby, felt gratitude swell in his chest at how far Derek had come. Summer's tail end brought a swirl of tasks. The barley ripened to a deep gold, bending low under the sun's rays, so Sam prepared for harvest. Derek, mindful of his ribs, handled lighter orchard chores, staking new corners, applying organic sprays to keep pests at bay, and verifying the final soil amendments. In quiet moments, he found time to finalize the orchard signage, painting it with a fresh coat of weatherproof sealant. Ranger sprawled at his feet, muzzle flecked with tiny drops of paint. At sunset, they joined Sam in the porch's soft glow, where Sam recounted tales of barley harvests from decades past. Derek listened, enthralled by how cyclical nature's demands could be. On a breezy August evening, Kelly kept her promise and returned. This time, her visit felt less fraught. She brought homemade jam from back east and beamed at the sign Derek had crafted. Over a casual supper, she talked about how her job now felt less urgent, how Derek's orchard plans had inspired her to reevaluate her own life's path. The next day, she rode along with Sam for feed store errands, chatting about small-town rhythms. Meanwhile, Derek took Ranger into the orchard, pointing out each row's future function. Kelly later found them kneeling in the soil, measuring the distance between sapling markers. She snapped a photo with her phone, capturing brother and dog in a moment of earnest focus. That photo circulated among the people Derek once knew, drawing an unexpected response. One weekend, a battered station wagon rumbled up the driveway, carrying two of Derek's old Mapleton colleagues. They stepped out with uncertain smiles, shaking Sam's hand and greeting Derek with warm humor. They decided to drop by en route to a hiking trip, curious about the orchard that had lured Derek away from firefighting. Over iced tea and homemade pie, they marveled at the orchard steaks and the calm farmland that replaced the adrenaline-laced calls they all remembered. Derek's posture tensed at first, but as the afternoon wore on, laughter replaced wariness. By dusk, the Mapleton friends departed, promising to spread the word that Derek Mills was thriving in a brand-new calling. Days lengthened, the orchard lines stood ready, and the partial grant's first installment arrived by direct deposit. Sam and Derek stared at the bank statement in the farmhouse kitchen, letting the reality sink in. "We have the funds," Derek whispered, voice thick with emotion. "It's actually happening." Sam exhaled a shaky breath. "Next step, ordering and planting. We can do it, right?" Derek nodded, a fervent light in his eyes. "Yes, we can." On a mild morning in early September, the sapling delivery truck rumbled onto the property. Two workers helped unload the carefully wrapped trees, each labeled by variety. Sam and Derek had plotted out exactly where each type belonged: hardier apples near the pond, a cluster of experimental pears by the orchard's western edge. For 2 days they dug holes in the prepared soil, carefully setting each sapling upright, patting earth around delicate roots. Ranger watched from a distance, occasionally bounding over to sniff a new tree before trotting off. The orchard, which once held only a handful of older trees, now stretched across multiple rows, each sapling a testament to possibility. The process was exhausting, and Derek's ribs occasionally throbbed, but he refused to stop. Sam, noticing Derek's winces, forced him to take breaks in the shade. During one pause, Derek gazed at a row of newly planted trees, leaves trembling in the breeze. "Thank you," he said softly to Sam, voice catching with emotion, "for letting me start over, for sharing your land." Sam, swallowing hard, placed a calloused hand on Derek's shoulder. "We saved each other," he replied, a gentle note in his tone. By mid-September, the orchard expansion was complete, though the work of tending those saplings would carry on through the changing seasons. Fiona sent a congratulatory note, praising their efficient use of grant funds. Margaret arranged another site visit, beaming at the orderly rows, pronouncing them healthy for a first planting. Kelly flew in once more, joining them for a small gathering in which they toasted with freshly pressed apple cider. Derek read a brief speech about how a single rescue had catalyzed all of this. Sam blushed, claiming no speech-making skill, but thanked everyone for believing in two men who'd found each other by chance. With harvest season upon them, Sam pivoted to the barley fields, but Derek often joined him for a few hours each day. Together they loaded the combine, hauling golden heaps of grain that would pay the bills and ensure future orchard stability. Derek's migraines ebbed as he found himself immersed in daily tasks, each moment tethering him more firmly to the present. Night after night, he and Sam crashed into bed, bone-tired but fulfilled. One windy dusk, they collapsed on the orchard's edge, leaning against the sturdy trunk of an older apple tree. Ranger flopped beside them, panting. Fireflies began their flickering dance in the tall grass, and the cool swirl of wind rustled the orchard's leaves. Sam let out a contented sigh, staring at the lines of saplings silhouetted against the setting sun. It's beautiful, don't you think? Derek nodded, eyes shining with gratitude. More than I ever dreamed. It's a place to grow, to heal. They fell silent, letting the hush of twilight enfold them. No longer did Derek's past overshadow every breath. His chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm, matching the orchard's own quiet pulse. Sam, older and wiser, realized that home was never about fancy houses or bustling towns. It was about roots, people, dogs, and saplings digging into the soil of second chances. Neither of them had planned this life, but they embraced it anyway, hearts lighter than they'd been in years. At length, Sam stood, extending a hand to Derek. "Let's head in," he said softly. "Tomorrow's another day of orchard watch." Derek took the offered hand, rising with only a trace of discomfort. Ranger sprang up, tail wagging as the men walked side by side across the gently swaying grass. The last embers of sunlight crowned them in gold, illuminating two souls who'd turned misfortune into renewal. In that warm glow, Orchard rose behind them. They carried forward a shared promise to nurture each tree, each dream, and each other, come storms or drought or anything fate might throw their way.